Welcome back, everybody. It's Carpo again. This is a part two of a two-part video, and I felt a little bit rushed in part one, even though I was more or less done with the video. It's based on some final thoughts on a subject about abuse, corruption by police, politicians, but I focus mostly on police there. And there are some final thoughts that I have to put in here. First off, I'm not a cop hater, and I want to make that clear. And I'm also not one of those people who thinks that every politician in the world is out to get you. But what I do believe is most of them don't give enough of a shit about their job to properly gauge a situation where the people are in need of their help. In other words, power corrupts through blinders, is the way I see it. It's not that the person is evil or mean, it's getting caught up in the moment, the emotion, just like politicians make horrible decisions based on what others tell them or what they think people want to hear. Everybody is just human. I get that. But we can't use that excuse in other careers, in other jobs, that, I was just doing my job or I didn't know better. And I mean, with the amount of things that I try to learn in my life about how the world works, it's never ceases to amaze me how many rather, let's say politicians don't pay attention to even the basics of, what their people believe or want or think, because that's much more important. You remember, they are our servants. The citizen is the leader of this country. And so when it comes to police, and the reason I'm mixing up politicians and police is because the police are what keep the people in line so they don't get pissed off about the politicians, because the politicians are the ones passing these laws in the dark of night, the Christmas Eve type laws that go into effect that people don't even realize. And after seeing the Patriot Act go into effect after 9/11, I quickly saw, how quickly this was going downhill. I mean, I've been well aware of what was coming, the fact that freedoms get slowly taken away. But the people are allowing it because they want more protection. In other words, they're convinced that, for example, Antifa is a huge threat to this world. And I don't know why that has to go off now. It's one of those things, every time I make a video, an alarm goes off, or, yeah. So where was I? Damn it. Brain fart. I hate it when I do that. Police, let's just start over here. Basically, police are there to keep the people in line, but they believe that they're just following the law. But this isn't always true, of course. And when people feel like they're safer, I remember what I was going to say now. Knew that would happen. The idea that Antifa is a major threat, and I know a lot of people think that, it's the end of days that Antifa was out in the streets. But that's no more ridiculous than, it's the same amount of ridiculous, rather, as thinking that white supremacists are going to take over the country, or, militias are going to run this land. It's most of the people are just people. There are extremist groups and there is violence, but this isn't the future of America. It's really hard to see that at times, but my point being there that they will be using this, what's been going on over the last year, as a justification to put more checks and balances, more laws down, and slowly take our rights away. Even the people who are out protesting for their freedom are working against their interests when they use methods which allow the cops to justify more use of force or more control. And we'll see how that turns out. But for the people out there who, still think that America is salvageable, which I do, I'm one of them. I don't think that we're necessarily, out of the woods here, or that we're going to remain as strong as we are if we don't, get our shit together. But if you look around at other authoritarian countries, it's not necessarily one individual leader who's in charge. There are places where the military obviously can take over. And America has a quite majorly large military, but before I made this, I was trying to find some notes I'd taken a while back, because I made a podcast on this subject yesterday. and uploaded it, so you can find the link on my channel. I have covered so many topics relating to police corruption, the drug war, and my number one and very first solution to this problem is to end the drug war immediately. I know a lot of folks oppose legalizing all substances. There have to be some checks and balances and proper amounts. Dealers will still have issues, of course. Manufacturing can still be illegal in its own way, but we'll have to work up to that. There are a lot of risks with using drugs, naturally. But the question I always pose to people who favor criminalization is this: have you seen any results as far as making drugs illegal in stopping drug use? Because historically there is none. If I want to go down the street and find any drug, I'm sure I probably could pretty quickly. And it's not the kind of thing where it's not available. It just makes it more expensive. And it's bad enough the expense people spend on their drugs. And yes, it's a problem, but these people need help. They don't need imprisonment because it never works. But the prison system makes a lot of money. And a lot of folks don't realize that the drug war was going on since Henry Anslinger back in the day, but it was really carried on by Nixon. He's the one who really started the drug war, and they've been caught audio recordings saying that we've got to get these hippies off the streets and these, the Negro protesters, and however they put it back then. There's some absurd recordings that are in public domain that you can hear them talking about this and saying, we got to get these ragtag people off the streets, so we need to pass laws that allows us to get them off the streets. Some of these laws were anti-protest or anti-gathering laws, which are still in place today, that's why you have to get a permit. And some of these those were only designed to suppress rebellion or protest. I mean, they weren't for the safety of the public. That's ridiculous. Because they are the public, usually. So anyway, the fact that they passed these laws, these anti-drug laws, was merely to fill prisons for two reasons. The first reason was to break up the anti-war movement, but the side effect of that was a large population that needed to be funded. And because of this, private prisons became the new thing. Now, today we have more people in prison than any other country per capita in the entire world. If I'm not mistaken, I think we have more prisoners than I think we have more prisoners than China, which has 4 times our population. It is absurd. So when we talk about oppression and corruption and governments imprisoning people, these are people who are still sitting in there for holding a bag of weed 10 years ago. A lot of these are being, fixed these days, but it's taking a lot of time. And I had my own incidents when I was young. I've been profiled even as a white male in a white city, just because I had long hair or a tie-dye on. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a black guy with a tie-dye on. I mean, it's the fact that we ignore these things and so many people really don't care is just because it hasn't affected them yet. But all of the laws affect us. There were times, when we talk about how many freedoms we actually have, there were times when alcohol was illegal. Is that justifiable? Some people would say yes, because it causes problems, but obviously it didn't work. The public always gets its way. It doesn't work. But dancing was illegal and still is on the books in some places. There was a time when working on the Sabbath could have you killed or imprisoned. Even believing in another God or teaching controversial subjects. These are the things that in the past we have had to work for, and I don't know. When we talk about things like the deep state or corruption or, the underlying forces that shape society, they cheer on these things. They cheer on the fact that people have less and less rights every year. They cheer on the fact that people are forced to just work longer hours, don't have much time to think about what's really going on, and don't realize what's being taken away not from us, but from our children. We're destroying our environment. We're destroying our our surroundings and our personal relations with one another. And on top of it, we have people who have power who are using things like COVID as a catalyst to take away even more rights and push people further into isolation, taking away people's businesses, removing the middle class through by default, without acknowledging the real damage that's being done here in so many ways to so many lives. More and more people are becoming homeless. More and more people are losing their homes and their jobs, and the future looks really grim to a lot of people. And I want to say, keep a positive outlook, fight for your rights, fight for your freedoms, and that's all we can really do. Thanks for listening, and be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you listening. Thank you to my patrons. Check out the podcast, and I'll talk to you all next time. Be safe.